Hi everyone, my name is Alyssa Vargas and I'm the teaching artist with BMCYF's Space to Create program. In this program, we are covering the elements of art, and so what we're going to be doing today is covering texture. So you can see here, this is called the Texture Hand Worksheet, and you can find it online pretty easily by searching for it. By following this worksheet, you are introduced to a variety of different textures. So what I'm going to start out doing is I'm going to outline and draw the outline of my hand. I'm going to start out with a pencil to do my outline, and then I'm going to be going back over it with pen. And these are the only things you're really going to need today, just a pencil, your pen, and of course your paper. If you want to, you can also have some sort of coloring materials, which is completely optional. You'll notice that you really can't see my pencil lines very much. That's why I really want to go over this with pen. Alright, so once you're done with the outline, it's time to start your textures. And so I'm going to be following the same textures that are on this handout and showing you how to do these one by one. But you're welcome to use any sort of texture that you want, like if you want to do a wood texture or you want to do something that looks bumpy, anything that you want to do. So what I'm doing right now is burlap. Now you can buy burlap sacks at the store and you can store stuff in them, and they kind of have a rough texture to them. So they're made of a material that's very coarse. And so we want to make it look like that. So I'm starting out with some horizontal lines, and then I'm going to do some vertical lines. And this is going to create the look of the burlap material. Because the burlap material is rough, you want to make these lines not really look very uniform, meaning they don't have to be perfect. Some can have bigger spaces in between and others can have smaller spaces in between. Now I'm just going to add some shading to the left side, and so I'm going to use some hatched lines to do this. Now I'm just adding some little pieces of thread that are sticking out of the burlap. Now the next texture we're going to do is a stone or brick texture. To do this, you're going to start out with the outline of each individual piece of stone. And I'm going to make sure that each crease in the stone is kind of offset from the one below it and above it, because this is how things such as bricks are set in real life. Now I'm going to start shading on the left side, and so I want to make sure I do the left side because that's where my shadow is on the other finger, so I want it to match up with this finger as well. I'm going to do this with some more hatching lines, and then I'm going to do some cross hatching as well and go back over the opposite direction. We're also going to add shading to each individual brick to add dimension to them. I'm going to start this by adding lines to each one. Now I'm going to begin the shading, and so I'm going to be using some vertical lines, and what I'm doing is creating the shadow on the left side because my light is coming from the right, and so I want this to match along with the other finger and along with my shading that I did on the left side of the finger for the bricks. Where my light is coming from is going to determine where my shading is going to be on this entire hand. And for this particular finger, I'm going to be using some cross-hatching lines to achieve this. All of these textures are being created using my pen, so they are called implied textures. They're not real textures because you can't actually feel them, but they are meant to imitate textures. So in other words, an implied texture is a fake texture. They are usually used in two-dimensional art like drawing or painting, and real textures can be used in things like three-dimensional art such as sculptures. The third texture that I'm going to be doing is scales. And so to do these, I'm going to start by using a U shape, and I'm going to just do this all the way across. Each new row of U's, I'm making it slightly off-center from the one above. That way the scales fit right in between each other. These scales are going to be the most time-consuming part of this drawing. Once you've finished all of your scales, don't forget to add your shading. The next implied texture that we're going to do is to make this finger look like a cactus. So this is going to be sharp texture. And what I'm going to start out with doing is drawing the lines going vertically, since many cacti have these spine lines running through them. Because they form around the shape of the finger, I'm going to be starting these lines out wider, and then they're going to get closer together as I go closer to the edge of the finger. The next step is to add the spikes to the cactus. All I'm doing is using thin, short lines and making them go in different directions. I'm going to do these lines all the way around to the other side of the finger. Then I'm going to put them on the inside as well. And now we're on to the thumb. The thumb is going to have hair texture. And so what I'm doing is short, quick strokes, and I'm wrapping these lines around the thumb. Unfortunately, because I am left-handed, it's going to be a little hard to see because my hand is going to be covering a bit of what I'm doing. But all I'm really doing is just layering short lines on top of each other, and I'm kind of making the lines go in different directions as I'm doing so. As I continue to layer these lines on top of each other, it's going to start forming the appearance of hair and will make the thumb look almost fluffy. The last thing to do with the hair is to add my shading. I'm going to use the same type of strokes that I did with the hair to shade. Okay, so now that the fingers are done, I'm going to be adding some lines into the palm of the hand, so that way I can make it look more like a realistic hand. So I'm going to put the creases in the palm, and I'm going to be adding some shading as well. These are all very light lines because I'm going to be building upon them. An easy way to do this is to look at your other hand while you're drawing. That way you can see where the creases in your hand are and where the shadows are going to fall. And if you want to add some more fun to this, you can add the hand coming out of the ground, like in the Texture Hand Worksheet, the example on there. So that's what I'm going to do here because I really like the way that that looks in the example, and it's also another way to introduce you to one of the other elements of art that's going to be coming up soon, and that's going to be space, which I'm going to create by making the hand look like it's coming up out of the ground. I'm using vertical lines to shade inside of this canyon region, and the part that's further back I'm going to use lines that are closer together, and that's going to make them look darker. And then the pieces that are closer to me, I'm going to make them have lines that are a bit more spaced out, and that's going to make those areas appear lighter. You can see that by doing this, there's a certain amount of depth that is being formed. And that is going to complete this project on texture. If you want to continue on, you can add some color to this as well. Here I've just added some colors that are associated with the specific textures. This concludes the tutorial on texture for this week. So far we have covered line, color, shape, value, and texture. The last two elements of art remaining are form and space. Join me next week for another element of art tutorial, and if you followed along with this project or any of the other previous ones, please send your work our way so we can see what you've made. Thanks for joining me. See you next time. Bye!